to Hustle Stay from good old New Jersey. I'm one of your hosts, Isaac Gilman.
And I'm your other host, Ed Hendrickson.
Today we are going to talk about flipping homes and some of Ed's experience flipping houses. He's been doing this now for about 2 years.
Yep.
And he's learned some valuable lessons the hard way, and he's also picked up a lot of things from some other people around him. So I think the first thing we wanted to kind of start with was, what's one of the key things that you look for when you're looking to invest in a property to ultimately maybe renovate and turn over to somebody else? Actually, how about let's start there. Define a flip.
Okay. So to me, or what to most investors are calling a flip, is you buy any sort of property. It doesn't necessarily matter what condition it is. You do a little bit of rehab to it to enhance its value, and then put it back on the market and sell it. And that's it. You don't even have to make money to do a flip. But at some aspect is buy a property, do some sort of maybe rehab of it, and then sell it.
Okay. So where do you buy these properties from? Let's start. Let's kind of walk through your process. So there's homes for sale all over the market. I can go to Century 21 down the street.
Yep.
Other realtors, is that where you go to?
No. Unfortunately, I feel like by the time it actually hits a mainstream Century 21 real estate company, it's probably not a property that has a lot of value to be flipped. Usually properties that are good for flips are going to come from a couple different avenues, but they're short sales. So maybe a Century 21 or somebody like that, not to, specifically say Century 21 isn't a good real estate agency. That's not what I'm saying at all. They definitely are a highly regarded retail shop. But so I'm looking for a short sale somewhere. We've briefly
what's a short sale? I know we talked on it probably an episode or two ago.
So somebody who they owe more than their property is currently worth right now, they would go through what's a short sale process.
So is that what a lot of people hear about being underwater?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing well. For whatever reason, my property is now worth less than what I originally paid for it. Maybe there's a recession going on. I mean, that's a lot of what happened in the 2007, 2008 era. Now I need to get money quick. Why sell it? Why short sell versus just hold on to it for a long time?
So the bank's eventually going to take the property away and sell it at sheriff sale, which is another avenue, but we can talk about that in a second.
Okay.
So if you're not paying your mortgage or can't afford, so a lot of times, unfortunately, it's a lot of that people can't actually afford to pay their mortgage, or they realize that they're so
maybe
under,
lost a job or something like that.
Right.
Okay.
So they stop paying their mortgage, they get issued a les pendants, and then, a lot of times those guys are found by agents who have found that there's a les pendants, and then they'll go and try to call you and see if they can get you to do a short sale. That's not always how it happens. You can go into a short sale on your own. You call a regular real estate agent and you say, I want to sell my home. They say, well, your home is only worth $250,000. You're like, yeah, but I owe $500. They say, okay, the only way to sell your home is to do a short sale. And mostly with the short sale is negotiating with the bank to find out what they'll be willing to take on the value, understanding that they're going to be taking a loss.
So kind of just a shorter period of time to sell a property, because sometimes in a normal, as you called it, a residential or retail transaction, selling a home can take a little while. It's not something you call up the bank. You have people look at your house using Century 21 and other brokerage, other firms like that. Okay, cool.
So actually, I just want to clarify that. I want to understand that a short sale process isn't necessarily any shorter.
Oh.
It is actually typically longer
interesting.
Than the regular buying process.
Okay, I always thought it was I need money quick, so let me get this out the door fast.
It's actually almost not even that. I'm working on a short sale right now that a client of mine just put an offer in on.
Okay.
We have had the short sale listing it'll be 3 years in August.
Oh my god. Yeah. All right. So that is substantially longer.
Yeah, sometimes it can take long, and then negotiating with the bank can take a long time as well.
Okay.
So just brief synopsis, if you're making an offer on a short sale, you make an offer, that homeowner has to approve the purchase.
Yep.
The contract price.
Okay.
They'll sign the contract, and then it goes to the bank.
Okay.
And then the bank has to accept your offer, and there's a process behind that.
So it's a lot more tiers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dealing with big banks, it goes through many sort of channels and pipelines, and it'll take a while.
Okay, so let's go back to kind of where you were. So I asked kind of like, what is a short sale? But as an investor, somebody that's looking to what we call flipping a home, but really it's just buying a home, renovating it, and then putting it back on the market for some sort of profit, or at least hopefully not a loss ideally, but in your experience that does happen at times. Mm-hmm. So you're looking for short sales. Is there anything else that you might look at?
I'm looking at sheriff sales. So
sheriff
I'm going
sales.
to the auction and seeing if there's value at any of those properties.
And when you say sheriff, like county sheriff or...
Yeah, so
like I think police.
Yeah, so each sheriff department, which is typically in the state of New Jersey, done by county. So it's like the Bergen County Sheriff's Department, the Union County Sheriff's Department.
So it may change by state because sheriff sales in New Jersey may not be a thing in like Michigan where I've lived.
And each state has its own different set of rules on the foreclosure process in general.
Yeah, okay. And I know foreclosures are big in Detroit and definitely in Michigan in general.
So they probably do have some sort of auction process.
Yeah, I've known it's a county auction usually. Mm-hmm. Yep, okay.
Like I know so these are actually held at in a room, a courthouse or something along those lines, right, that the county is providing. I know in Connecticut, actually, their sheriff sales are done at the property in one county.
Interesting.
I know specifically. So you'll go to the property, and somebody will stand there and auction off the property. So you actually sometimes have less competition because there might only be two people that actually showed up to the house to bid on it because there could be another house that day that's being bid on, and you gotta.
Oh, so you can only be at one place. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
I don't know too much about that process though. I just someone had told me about a networking event.
Interesting.
So we have our sheriff sales, and then another popular way is through a wholesaler.
Okay, so we got short sales, sheriff sales, and now wholesaling. Is that like going to Costco and buying a home? No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
No, I wish it was that easy, but basically a wholesale or an assignment, which is kind of a very similar line of business that you can get these from.
Okay.
Is somebody has done that work. They might have bought something at a sheriff sale or maybe at a short sale. So like I said, that short sale process might take a long time. So someone spent that time, they get the property under contract, and then they try to then sell that property prior to it actually closing at the short sale.
So that could be a short period of time because in a residential transaction, right, you close 30 to 45 days after, your application gets approved and you get your purchase agreement through.
Exactly. I mean, someone... excuse me, they might, I got my short sale approval, okay. Now the bank's like, you have to close in 30 days because they've been on that process. So 30 days is reasonable for them. Now they start advertising it. I hear about it 2 weeks before the short sale approval has to go. So I have to be able to close now in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. So you have to be pretty prepared. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And the same thing with assignment of bids at sheriff sales. So at a sheriff sale, you now when it is an assignment of bid, you step in for that person. So if they only had 30 days and they've used 10 are gone. You are that new person now.
Okay.
You just took their right basically to purchase the property.
Okay, wow, all right.
And then at the same time, we can go a step further and we have LLC buyouts. So maybe with the sheriff sale, there wasn't enough time. You actually closed on the property into your LLC. And now you're still, we would still consider it wholesaling at that time. You're selling that property.
Okay. All right. So you look for, as an investor, you're looking at 3 specific areas to just purchase a property.
Yeah.
So short sales, sheriff sales, or at least sheriff sales in New Jersey, but some sort of auction.
Yep.
And then wholesaling.
Yep.
Okay. So
that's usually the main way. There are a lot of just, we don't have to go into this right now, but those are the public channels you can say.
Right.
There are different things that feed into a wholesaler.
Sure.
So a wholesaler can get his properties many different ways. Maybe we were just friends and you sold,
or inheritance something.
Or tax lien, or there's all sorts of ways that wholesalers go about finding their properties.
Okay. So you look at these 3, let's say channels. Let's call them channels for for this purpose. As an investor, I'm looking at these 3 channels. What are you trying to identify within those channels to say, all right, this is a good property that I want to spend some capital on to hopefully make some sort of return on my investment?
So For myself as a flipper, I kind of the first thing I'm doing is I'm taking a look at what the property is going to be. So a property's approached to me, let's just say. So someone sends me a property and I see that it's $120,000. I can move forwards or backwards. So I'm either, what I mean by that is I can either, number one, I have to find out how much it's going to cost to rehab the property to get it to its best best value, right? Best use. So I find out what that is. Let's call it $80,000 is going to cost.
Okay.
So now it's going to cost me $200,000.
So 120 to buy the property as is.
Yeah.
And then 80 grand to fix it up into some sort of sellable property.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some of these might already be sellable, but to the highest and best use.
Right. I mean, I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but like if I think about it, you're not going to sell it for $200,000, maybe $250,000.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Okay.
So now we find out what will that house sell for? Is it $250,000? Is it $300,000?
Okay. And so it's, and I don't mean to cut you off, but like when I think about buying properties, I'm thinking about, all right, is this area gaining population, or is this like a hot trendy neighborhood, or is it like, but that's more of a residential side in terms of like where I want to live and spend my life. Is that the same for like an investor like yourself?
So it definitely is the same for an investor. It just depends on what kind of an investor you are, right? Somebody might say, oh, okay, for example, one time Brooklyn was heating up. Like they just went to Brooklyn to find, because they already knew that.
Okay.
So they were going there on purpose, and then property maybe it's the second thing that comes to play, because the first thing they were looking for was a great market, and the second thing was now I have to find a property.
Okay.
I'm kind of, when I explain this, I'm kind of a step past that, because I'm assuming you're already in the area you want to be, but you don't have to be in a hot market. There are markets that are maybe not so hot for retail, such as an area like Newark. There aren't many people that are flocking to move to Newark.
Okay.
But there are properties that are in very bad condition in the area that you can bring back up to a normalized condition for that area and flip it and make money.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you can invest in hot neighborhoods, or you can take a home in an average neighborhood, let's say, that's just under disrepair. Like maybe it was abandoned at one time, maybe like the homeowners they were old and they didn't want to take care of it for whatever, and so like you're basically bringing it from, let's say, 1995 to 2018.
Exactly. I mean, a good example, I saw a property in Ridgewood where we grew up, right?
Yeah.
Most people think, oh, Ridgewood, nice, oh my God, those homes are in perfect condition. Like, some homes aren't, right? They're outdated, whatever the case is. Maybe somebody wasn't living there, or they were living there and didn't take care of it, and now they're selling. And that's an opportunity where maybe you can go in and put a big rehab, maybe put a second floor in or an addition in the back, and that could be, that is considered a flip as well. That's somebody just really, taking advantage of an area that needs to get up to a certain level, and they'll do that kind of work. So there are different size flips. You can go to Newark, clean it up, paint it, re-put it out, or you can go to, Saddle River, New Jersey, and put a massive 3,000 square foot addition on the house, and it'll be worth more.
Got it. Okay.
And they then sell.
But it may cost you. So going back to, you're trying to figure out, you're basically doing this quick math, but it doesn't sound like it's overly complicated.
No, so once you start flipping and you kind of get an idea of what things cost, you can figure out in your head that it usually costs me X dollars per square foot. And the reason why I say X dollars is because there's, it might cost $125 a square foot in Ridgewood to do a flip, and it might cost $40 a square foot to do a flip in Newark.
How do you figure that out? Like, if I think about it, I'm going to look at property, like I'm going to go on Zillow, let's say, right? And I know you have access to more than just Zillow, but as an average person that doesn't have this access, I'm going to go to Zillow. I'm going to say, all right, this home on average costs $100,000. Its square foot is 1,000. So I can just like do that math real quick, or do you like have another?
Definitely, it can be that simple. For me, for the areas that I've done flips, I know what my on average what my price per square foot is, and then I just give it a little bit of an upgrade if I'm going to a slightly better area. But we could just continue to take because I've never done a flip in Ridgewood, so just so we can be a disclaimer that I'm just going to give this advice on the fly here.
All right, go for it.
Let's say you're looking to buy a house in Ridgewood, and let's use the Lawns for example, because there are a lot of one-floor homes with maybe like a bedroom upstairs that's like was an attic but converted.
Okay.
Right. So
So more modest home.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And this house might not really even need much work,
Okay.
right? This could be a retail home, actually, even
Okay.
to take it a step further. For example, I don't know, Ridgewood maybe sells at $400 a square foot.
Okay.
That's just the average home in Ridgewood. That's what it's selling for.
Okay.
So you're buying this house for the proper price. You're not overpaying. You're not underpaying.
Okay.
A retail buyer could buy it, or an investor buys it. So let's say an investor buys it, and he knows it's going to cost. It's $400 a square foot. He knows he can build at $150 a square foot.
Okay. So that's a
Every
pretty steep
square
discount.
foot that
yeah.
he puts on that house, he makes $250.
Yeah. Okay.
So now he does an addition on the back, and he does a full second floor.
Okay.
He adds 2,000 square feet.
Wow.
He's now able to add basically, what's that rough numbers, $50,000 of value to that home. He now then goes and sells it at $400 a square foot with his extra 2,000 square feet, and he just made 50 grand. So that's a way of looking at a flip. That's a very basic way to look at flip. And actually there is a segment of people that are starting to do that, because unfortunately there's so many people that are trying to invest that these depreciated homes are actually going up in value, that the value doesn't really work anymore for a flip. There are a lot of new people that are coming in and flipping, overpaying for their flip.
Okay.
And they're making less money. I mean, they're making some money, but maybe when I do, there are a lot of people out there, you'll meet them, they're like, I only do a flip if I make $80,000. By the way, if you know anybody that's like that, I want to speak to them, because I'll take the ones that they won't do that are under $80,000. But
But like, why? Like, is $80,000? So when I think of a home, right? I think, one, it's a large purchase. Two, if it's a large purchase, I expect a higher return, and so $80,000 doesn't seem unreasonable if I'm spending $500,000, let's say, or even $400,000 or $300,000.
Yeah. So there's this. That's actually a really good point that you bring up, because a lot of people do have that conversation, and someone says to me, how much money should I make on a flip? My answer always back is, how much money are you comfortable with based off the money you're putting in?
Okay, so with that said, so like if I'm comfortable putting $100,000 in,
and you make $80,000,
that's a ton. That's
great,
double,
right? That's
yeah.
like, anybody really should do that. That's
Right.
a awesome
it
investment.
seems like a no-brainer.
But if you put $400,000 in,
Yeah.
you're only making 20% now.
It's
by
still
getting
pretty good
$80,000.
if you're like thinking about like returns on a 401k or something like that, which
Exactly. So overall, yes, it is a great return. But there might be a guy who says, I can do 4 $100,000 flips and make $80,000 on each flip, and give me a way better return with my $400,000 than that 20%.
for sure. Okay.
So there is a class of flippers that sit there and say, I need to make a minimum amount. And maybe there's a guy who just has a lot of cash and he's willing to invest in me, and we can turn around and make $20,000 off that $400,000 property,
Huh.
which is, what's that, a 5% return. And he's completely okay with making 5% all day.
Which isn't horrible,
got-
right? You're
right.
like beating inflation.
He's got tons of money, and he's
Yeah.
like, hey, look, I have a lot of money in the stock market. I want to dabble in real estate. It's really all what you're comfortable with.
So okay, let's
Yeah.
pause here, because like we talked about, you're identifying where to find these properties. So you have the 3 channels, right?
Yes.
Now you're doing some not mental math, but you're doing some math to say, all right, if it costs me $100,000 or $120,000 to buy a home and $80,000 to rehab it, now you're saying it's really that return, or basically however much I make off of that flip, is what I am comfortable making. And like, so right, if I'm hearing you correctly,
In essence, just in general, I'm saying that there are, we're going to talk a little bit about lending here
Yeah.
with this. But so there are certain lenders out there that will only lend if you're going to make X amount of dollars, or you
Okay.
have to be making X percent. I'm just stating, if everything was relative and you could make as much money as you wanted, and any lender would
Sure,
lend on
right,
anything.
right.
I just believe how much money should somebody make is really only a question that they
Can
actually answer.
Right, it's like
themselves.
defining what is success for you. Everybody, like,
Exactly.
I could be a millionaire, you could be a billionaire,
Yeah.
but both of us are still successful.
Exactly.
Okay, so all right, so you identify the properties, you do some basic math to figure out what it's going to cost, and obviously, I mean, I think what we're assuming here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're kind of talking about is like, I already know how much it's going to cost me to renovate because I have some experience in that, right? So I think we'll probably skip past like how to actually figure out the renovation part, but now you're about to go into lending. So why do I need to lend? I thought like if I'm flipping homes, I just always have money, and I kind of can buy homes if I want.
So do you have some cash?
No, I don't. That's why I don't flip.
No, so there are lenders out there, as I mentioned before in a couple other episodes, is that hard money lenders who I have good relations. I have good relationships with a couple different hard money lenders
Here in Northern New Jersey.
That I'm working with as a broker.
Okay.
Just a little brief explanation of what that is.
What is that?
There, for example, say there's 3 lenders that I work with. I know the 3 different programs that they have, and you're looking to do a flip. Okay. So you come to me and say, hey, Ed, here's my scenario. I'm buying this property. You tell me how much you're buying it for, what the rehab is, what you're going to sell it for, what your credit score is, what your experience is, and based off your profile,
okay, I
can find one lender that'll work best for you.
So it doesn't sound that much different than like my experience getting a traditional retail mortgage. I mean, I think I remember talking to you like hard money lending is more specific toward flipping, but it sounds like it's similar qualifications in terms of like you need my FICO score or whatever, right. You need my credit score, all that stuff.
It's the same from that very basic standpoint. But it's more of how much cash do you have, what's your experience, and what's your credit.
So and experience. Okay.
Yeah, so those 4 things will be your thing. You need some money, some capital to purchase.
Right. So like put like a what do you call it?
A down payment.
Down payment. Thank you.
Down payment. You're going to need some cash to pay your closing costs.
Right.
And then you'll need cash.
Can you finance your closing costs like you could in a traditional retail mortgage?
Sometimes yes, but very, very rarely can you. Okay. Most lenders don't like to do that.
Okay.
Because they want to see it in this short-term loan that you have skin in the game. So they would prefer you to be paying that because it shows that you're, it's more you than them then that actually has money in the deal.
And I do know, like on the retail side, you can't always finance your closing costs, but you can sometimes figure it out depending on how much equity is in your home. But we won't get into that right now. Anyway, so experience, down payment, now cash to close, and what else? There was 4 things.
So it's experience, which how many deals have you done? Very basic. Having cash to close and start funding the deal. We can get into that a little bit more.
All right.
And then your credit score.
Yep.
So most lenders want to work with somebody who has at least 600 credit score.
Okay.
Some people don't care if it's 600 or 800. Some people do. Okay. So that's why I'm saying it.
So as like somebody with good relationships with these lenders, like one place is going to need a 700 to get a certain rate or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then the last and almost most important is how good is the deal.
How good is the deal? So, and that's kind of the math that you're talking about right now.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
So I'm going to take those 4 things. I'm going to find out what lender best fits for you, and then I can put you at one of those lenders.
Okay.
And then, and maybe you're best for both, but I can explain to you how each one of them operates because they all don't operate the same. They have different things, different fees. Different ratios and stuff. It's like
It's like different flavors of ice cream.
Exactly.
You have strawberry, vanilla, chocolate. They're all ice cream. Which flavor works best for you?
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
So I'll then recommend to you which lender we should go to, and we start the process.
Okay.
And then I'm paid a fee from that.
Okay.
That is paid to me by the lender for bringing them business.
Okay.
So I work a little bit different than other hard money brokers. A lot of hard money brokers charge a fee up front and tell you this is what it's going to cost for me to find you a deal, sign this piece of paper. I just say, I'm going to take you, I work with multiple lenders. I'm going to place you with the best lender. And if that one doesn't work out, as soon as they say it's not okay, we'll go somewhere else.
Because, why do you do that? Like, is that because you want, like, you're not looking to make quick dollar, you want this person to actually have a successful experience? Why?
Yeah, so as I kind of have a bad taste in my mouth for lenders who try to overcharge you for a deal. So maybe a hard money lender is going to charge you anywhere from 2 to 4 points depending on where you go.
And by points percentage
of the total loan amount.
Yep. Okay.
And then for me to then say to you, hey Isaac, I'll find you a lender, you're going to pay 2 points to me also.
Okay.
So now you're anywhere from 4 to 6.
So now you're just spending lots of money.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I've spoken to my lenders who I work with, and I say, I'll bring them at the 2 to 4, and if this guy is a 3-point borrower, you'll pay me some sort of the total loan.
Yep.
Yeah. You'll pay me some sort of fee out of that 3. Okay. And we negotiate what that is. So this way, they're not saying, okay, this guy's a 3-point borrower, let me add 1 for Ed. Now he becomes 4 points. If you went to the company or I went to the company with you, you pay the same.
So it kind of incentivizes you to really bring them the best deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So that's
Okay.
what changed me. I feel it sets me apart from other brokers because they just know they're getting their fee and send you
All right,
wherever.
sweet. So I'll call you next week.
Yes. So now you'll have money for your flip.
Exactly.
So, sorry, I guess I.
So
I got
yeah,
kind
so
of
you're
distracted,
setting up. So like you're setting up the deal. We talked about some criteria that lenders look at because of your experience as a loan officer and building these relationships, right, through networking, which we've talked about in the past. You're trying to provide the person that kind of wants to flip, even if it's not you, but you just know this stuff because you're also a flipper on your, in your spare time. You want this person to win because you've been through the experience and you want to win yourself, right?
Yeah.
Even if the return, which we talked about, is not necessarily substantial in terms of like astronomical percentage, but there is some, and I think where we left off was the deal does have to have some sort of hopeful, like, positive return in order for the loan to go through.
Yeah.
So what are some loan officer or some loan companies looking for in terms of that return?
So let's just look at a very basic standard way a lender would lend
go
on
for it.
something. So most hard money lenders are willing to lend around 80% of the purchase price.
So $100,000, they're willing to lend $80,000.
Yeah.
If I'm purchasing a home for $100,000. Okay.
They're willing to lend around 100% of rehab. So
of
that
rehab.
work
Okay.
that needs to get done.
Okay.
That total number that we just came up with there. So let's just say it's a $50,000 rehab.
Yep.
It's a $100,000 purchase, as you mentioned.
Yep.
They're going to lend $80,000 at a purchase.
Yep.
Plus $50,000 to the rehab. We're at $130,000.
So 130. Yep.
That $130,000 can exceed 65%
Cannot or can?
Cannot.
Cannot. Okay.
of the after repair value, which
Of
is the
after repair value. Okay.
inevitably what you're going to try to sell it for.
So wait, you're saying that there's a limit? So like, I can't make a return of 66%, or am I thinking about it the wrong way?
You're thinking about it the wrong way. I mean, your return is limitless.
My return is limitless.
But in
Okay.
essence, there is a minimum return if you want to look at it that way.
I see. Okay. So there's a floor, but there's no
Right.
ceiling.
Exactly. And there are costs that are going to be in between. So let's say you're going to be at 130 is your total loan amount.
Got it.
You're going to sell it for 200.
Yep.
So there's $70,000 in spread here. You will pay those costs, that interest on the loan for the period, the points, the closing costs,
Okay.
any sort of selling costs at the end.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if those numbers work, just as we're making them up, but actually they do work to the dollar. So of 200,000, 65% is $130,000.
So that's what. So wait. So say that again, and kind of like if you can break it down. So we're purchasing the home for $100,000, and they're only going to loan us 80% of that.
Correct.
So I got $80,000. It's going to cost me $50,000 in rehab. So now they're able, with that $80,000 that they're going to loan us plus the $50,000, I have a $130,000 loan.
Yeah.
What you said that there is a return that they expect.
So they don't really outright call it that.
Okay.
What they're looking to do is they're only going to lend 65% of the after repair value. So on this deal, if you were
Got
to
it.
take 130 and divide it by 0.65,
Yes.
it's going to give you what that number would be. And
Got
it
it.
happens to be in this case, if I'm right on my math, roughly, it's $200,000.
Okay.
Because 65% of
Right,
200,000
exactly.
is 130.
Yep. Okay.
So it has to appraise for at least $200,000
After rehab.
after rehab.
After rehab.
In order for them to make this loan.
Okay. And that's just, and is that just for their, like, almost like their underwriting, right? Their risk,
That's their own.
kind
Yeah,
of
that's
their,
that's
the way
for
that
their
they
risk.
take on risk.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, at least we'll be able to make back. Okay. All right.
So for them, if something happens to the market and the market drops 10%, and now the house is only worth $180,000,
They're not hanging
they're
on
still
the-
protected because there's still the $50,000 in cushion on their perspective.
Yep. Okay.
So they can start to weather, a little bit of a pullback in the market.
Okay. Makes sense.
So that's the main criteria you would need to get a loan. Now, saying
Okay.
certain lenders ask for certain other requirements because maybe those numbers don't make perfect sense. With like the lower you get, those numbers start to be harder to turn a profit by the time you start
Lower.
adding in the costs.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So, you know, if it's
Yeah.
an $80,000 purchase and a $20,000 rehab, if, you know, let's just say that's 16, so you're at what, $64,000 is your purchase, plus your 20,000 is 84.
Right.
Now maybe at 65% it's 110. Let's just say
It's almost just not worth it
it's
for
just
the
not
lender.
worth it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now he
okay.
says we shouldn't do this flip because by the time you pay your costs, nobody makes money.
And that's where people maybe just want to do cash only, right?
Exactly.
They're not like,
Right.
and I guess on that note, right? Like you don't always need to go through a lender, right?
Correct.
I mean, you could, if you have enough money, there are some downsides to doing a cash only deal. You're kind of putting your eggs in one basket, as they say, but it's also gives you some more freedom.
Yeah. I mean, if you really do run the numbers, cash versus a hard money loan, I mean, there is substantial savings. But if you were to run the numbers against 5 hard money deals versus 1 cash deal,
right.
the numbers will outweigh.
Okay.
So it really depends on your comfort. Do you want to leverage? Obviously, leverage can be great and leverage can be really bad. I mean, 07 and 08, that part of that crash, the leverage people got wiped out. People who are
When you say
over-leveraged.
leverage, you mean you're borrowing money.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Not like I'm actually leveraging something else, but you're
Right.
you're just not using your own.
Well, you're leveraging the equity to get more, more money off of your property. Yeah, but yeah, so you're putting less money in. You have a lot more debt on the property.
Yep. Okay.
So that
there you
way,
go.
when the value starts to come down, now there's only debt and maybe.
And then you're underwater, like
underwater.
kind of
Exactly.
what we
Now
talked
what
about
do you do
earlier,
when
like
some
a
people
short
say,
sale.
"I'm not going to pay," and they walk away.
Right, which has its own ramifications.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then again, though, if you leverage right, like I said, you can do more properties.
Right.
But there is a risk, and you should really know what you're doing when you're leveraging.
But I mean, I think at the end of the day, though, what we're trying to convey here is it's not some crazy black box that happens here. It just requires some time to really think through your strategy in terms of, all right, defining success for yourself. Like, what return on my investment do I really want to try to achieve? And even the ones that you've tried to achieve doesn't always work out.
Exactly.
But then it's like, all right, once I figure out what is success for me, why don't I begin the process of identifying how can I achieve this success? Maybe they call you, right? Maybe they visit your website, or maybe they go to the hard money lenders themselves, just like we can go to a bank and get a loan for a retail mortgage.
And I also provide that at the same time that I'm not saying hard money lenders don't do it. Some do. Some don't really want to be involved with that. Like I have some lenders that don't want to work with first-time people. So, either know the business.
But
or
there
move
are
on,
lenders that,
right?
I mean, how do people get started if
Right.
there are lenders
that's
that
one
don't
of the lenders
start?
that I work with, and that's
Right.
where I used to work. They are completely okay with working with first-timers. They will teach and walk you through the process.
That was going to be a question.
So I learned that from them, that mindset of teaching how the loan works, and now I use that with all of my borrowers, because someone who might have quote experience, you're a contractor, you've been the contractor on 5 flips, I can take you somewhere where you don't
When you say contractor,
experience.
like somebody rehabbing your
they're the contractor that's done 5. They've been the contractor on 5 flips, and they're like, I want to go do this for myself.
Okay.
We can leverage that experience and put them in place with someone who has experience, but they still don't know how the loan process works. That's why I'm there to educate them and help them through the process. And I mean the whole way through the process. I mean, how do you get money back for some construction midway through? They call me, I work with them, I liaise with the lender and schedule this stuff.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like the point person, but it's not really your money, right? You're not like taking the risk, but you're helping somebody figure out how to mitigate and you can never eliminate risk. Risk, I mean, we learn this in technology all the time. Like, hacking happens. People are going to get hacked.
Yep.
But how do you respond to that hacking is how you mitigate risk, right?
Exactly.
And prepare to figure that out. But you'll never be able to build all the barriers in the world. And so I think going to your point about like helping people along, you can't solve the problems of the economy, right? Like, I can't tell you right now that tomorrow's going to be the same or better than today, but you can help somebody, at least at the time, figure it out.
Correct.
Okay. So I want to work with you, right? Like, so you're helping me, maybe you're helping me identify 3 channels, like, hey, look at this short sale listing, or go to this sheriff sale, or I'll go with you to the sheriff sale. And then what was the wholesaling?
Yep.
Okay, so now you're helping maybe somebody do the math, or you're doing the math yourself in your own experience or with some of your partners, and now rehab time.
Correct.
I got my loan, I got my money, and let's just keep it simple. I know there's ways the money comes out in different waves, but
Yep.
what do you do when you're like rehabbing?
Well, in order to even get the loan, you really do need, I mean, you need to have a contractor. You have to have a scope of work.
So
and
you
a
already
plan
have to
and
have
idea.
that ahead. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so you have that ahead of time. Some lenders are a little bit more strict on what that means. Does that mean do you need, contractor's license, insurance, driver's license, have a phone conversation with
Oh, wow.
them? To some lenders are just like, send me the scope of work and I get it.
Okay.
Those guys are usually going to be more experience heavy.
Right.
Lenders
So they're
who,
okay.
so like I said, so a
They
guy
know what you're
who,
doing.
yeah, who will work with a newer person is going to ask for a little bit more information.
Got it. Okay,
which,
makes sense.
Makes sense. And really, they're helping you because they're helping make sure you have a good contractor. Is he licensed? Is he insured?
Right.
You should want these things. You don't want to work with an uninsured.
You don't want to cut
contractor
corners
and then-
around and then find out
it's
you're
only going to hurt
screwed. Yep.
yourself, at the end.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I can help educate that process before.
Okay.
And then, when you get to the lender, they can obviously continue to educate you. But hopefully I've done a good enough job in the beginning to, explain.
And do you have
all this
contractors like that you can call and be like, or recommend, or is that is that not really something that you focus on?
stuff. So it's not something I focus on. And
Okay.
the reason why is, I have to also mitigate my risk a little bit as
Sure.
well. Because
And you can't know everything.
Exactly. If I were to recommend a contractor and that contractor decides he, walks off the job or he gets into a fight
Right.
with the borrower, they disagree about something, they immediately call me and they're like, that contractor you sent me, I'm having an issue. Can you
Right.
step in? Why'd you recommend him to me? So I just would rather step back and say, listen, I just don't recommend contractors. Or what I would do is be like, hey, here are 3 contractors that somebody else has worked with. Maybe you can give them a call.
Got it. Okay.
Or I've worked with 1, 2, and 3. Make sure you check out all 3. I believe you should check many quotes anyway, but I wouldn't ever give like, hey, here's my guy. He's the best, because even as doing jobs, like a guy who was the best for me in the past has fallen down on the job for me on the next deal.
Interesting.
Just because they were good on one doesn't necessarily even mean that they're going to be good on the second.
Makes sense.
So that's why I stay away from recommending contractors.
So if we back up a second, so you're looking at these properties, right? And based on your experience, which is only a few years at this point, like you're like, okay, maybe I need to redo the floors, I need to redo the bathroom, and like, but you don't really know what this is going to cost other than just some basic, like maybe some basic math or some basic Googling of like how much appliances and things cost. Ultimately, a contractor has to walk through there and be like, all right, this is going to cost $50,000, this is going to cost $20,000, this is going to be $500 or whatever. And then they bring you that quote. Is that kind of how that works?
Yep.
Okay. So now you have this quote and you get the money. Contractor does the work. Is it that simple?
Yeah, for the fact that there's a whole process of what a contract, he's getting his
Right.
permits, he's doing his stuff. But yeah, so the contractor goes in and he does his work. Everything goes smooth. We get our money. He doesn't leave. We pass. We do our permits.
Okay.
And then the next step would be to list the property to sell.
Okay. And now are you listing it with a Century 21 or like one of those more commercial like retail shops, or what are you like? How are you selling a property?
Me personally, I believe in if an agent somewhere does come across a property for me, I like to give them the first option back to sell the property, because there are agents that know about these distressed properties.
Okay.
And they might work at Century 21, Keller
Whatever,
Williams, or
yeah.
a mainstream place. I always go back to them and give them personally the benefit of the doubt. Hey, you brought this property to me. What can we list it for? They have first shot and try to negotiate a, like our contract with them. See
Okay.
how much they'll charge me. See if they can maybe give me a discount because I bought the property from them. There's all sorts of things that I can do. And then next step I think is important is going to an agent that sells a lot of properties in that area.
So somebody with like local knowledge
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
So it could be a local realtor who you've never heard of before,
Okay.
but they sell all the properties in the neighborhood.
Huh.
They're the ones who I want.
Why? Like why? What's the purpose behind that?
Because as an agent, and I don't want to knock agents in theory, anybody can sell a house, right? Anybody
Sure.
can go and do the research and find a listing.
Yeah.
But you'll find that from what I've noticed, top agents usually become top agents in a market. So an agent that just sells in Ridgewood, New Jersey is going to be better off than an agent that takes probably any listing in Bergen County because
Okay.
they have mastered Ridgewood.
they, like, have a
know
specific
that on
set of-
this street
yeah.
there's this, and they also know further that they just had a buyer last week looking around the corner, and now this new listing came up in their office, or they just know the town so well they can call. They already have buyers lined up.
it.
So when you give them a listing, they're like, I actually know somebody who was looking in exactly in your price range and couldn't afford the house down the street. My other client bought the house down the street.
Here you
Maybe
go.
they're interested.
Okay. So kind of connecting the dots there.
So I'm personally a firm believer of that.
Okay.
I did that with 2 of my properties. I hired agents that only worked. Actually, one of my properties that I was very happy to sell and barely get out of, but I hired an agent who was a great agent. He sold my prior property. He actually did a great job selling my prior property, but it was a different city. And it was Elizabeth versus Newark. So he sold my Elizabeth home. I'm telling you, extremely happy. I was like, this guy's my agent. This is great. I was going to use him for everything. So I hired him for my property in Newark, but he doesn't sell in that section of Newark. So he posts his sign, does some advertising. That's it, right? I wasn't getting many showings. I wasn't getting many offers.
Interesting.
I got a little disappointed. I went on as I'm a real estate agent as well, as we've discussed. I went on and used my channels, and I found out who was selling all the properties in the area. And I called that guy and said, why isn't my house selling? Can you sell my house? And he basically said to me, I know where they're coming from. So the people who are moving to this neighborhood, I know where they live now, and I market to that area.
Oh, so they just know their customers really, like customers,
Exactly.
quote unquote, really
Yeah.
well.
So that's what I was saying. They know that area well. So moved the listing to him, and within a week, he had me an offer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he sold the house across the street from me,
Okay.
which I was able to use that as a comp to help me sell my
Right,
house
yeah.
for a little bit more money even.
Nice.
So he sold it for more than I even had it listed.
Because he just like
he was able to
Yeah.
tell people, hey, that house across the street sold for $15,000 more than this guy has it listed. Now, he didn't get me as much as that one, even though my house was nicer, because I had spent now 90 days on the market stale. So people are looking at that thinking they can, take advantage of that. So that is something that I believe in. And then you can, I do think overall you can use, my next step would be use an agent that specializes with investment properties. So I would say such as a company like that I work for. So I work for a company called Culture Estate, and we specialize in, we do a whole gamut of real estate. And when I say we specialize, because I personally specialize in an area where I work with investments. We have guys that work with just pure, as I call retail people. But I think an office like myself would easily be able to do it, not just because I work there and I'm pushing that by any means, but because there are investors, they are helping sell properties, investment properties in areas that they know what they're going to sell for at the end. So
Right.
It's kind of the same theory as the people who are selling all the retail properties. They're selling a lot of the investment properties.
interesting.
So they know the market
Really well.
Really well
Yeah.
on the beginning side, which helps on the end
Now,
side.
are they more expensive though? Like, is there a trade-off between this local agent versus somebody that focuses
Not
on
necessarily.
investment? Okay.
Agents typically charge around the same amount of money.
Is that like the 3 to 6% that you like? It's the commission, or is that
commission? Yeah, the commission is
Yeah.
typically the same, which is usually anywhere from 4 to 6%.
4 to 6. Okay.
And to be honest, it is people say 6%. I'm never paying that. I'm only paying 4. There are agents out there that charge 6%. They will sell your home in a week. I mean, sometimes it's just
Yeah.
worth paying. People think, oh, I don't want to pay that extra 2%, but you know what? If they sell your home really fast and it gets it off the market,
And
they
if
get
it's
you
like maybe
even
a
for
few
higher price,
exactly.
they're basically, if they can get anything over, they're
just
almost
making
paying
their
the
own-
money
yeah,
for you.
yeah.
So don't be discouraged if your agent's looking for 6%. It 100% can be worth it. And there are agents that are willing to do stuff for 4%. But we always say, would you take a pay cut to to go to work and do the same job, the next day, right? If someone's trying to get 6%, would you take a 20% pay cut to do the same job, right? There are guys that are worth paying more. There are guys in your office that get paid more money because they're good at their job.
Sure.
And then there are guys that get paid a decent salary maybe, and they know what their role is, and they're a great employee, but they're great for a different reason.
Sure.
Right? They just, they get the job done, right? But they're never going to go above and beyond. But maybe that guy who's doing 6%, he's going to go above and beyond. He's going to market your house. He's going to bring a lot of people through. He knows some buyers in the area, and he's an expert at what he does.
Makes sense. Okay. Cool. I think you've kind of gone over the overall process of flipping a home. I know we can definitely talk about some war stories at some point, probably later, but I think, if I'm recapping it correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you had the 3 channels that you kind of look into to just identify homes.
Exactly.
Then you do some basic math and maybe some just looking over, the areas that you're identifying as good areas to do your investments in. People can talk to you, or they can go directly, but ideally talk to Ed to figure out, okay, how do I get a loan, right? Obviously, they can call a loan officer or the loan office itself, but, you have these relationships already built. You know how a few different places work. You're kind of a one-stop shop for multiple places. You figure out the contractor stuff, you get the money, you do your thing, and then you list it, right? I guess on our way out here, is there one piece of advice that if you had known kind of at the start of your investing period, you wish you knew, so that you wouldn't make certain mistakes, or you would have just done some things differently that those that are kind of just starting out could learn from you? Is there one big major thing to think through, or piece of advice you give?
I kind of have 2, because I don't want to take away from one of the things that I think is big, but I think that there's a second part that's just as big.
Okay.
Number one, people have this saying that you make your money on the purchase, because when you find a good deal, that's how you make your money, right? If you buy a bad deal, you're not going to make money. If you buy a good deal, so with that, buying a good deal, make sure you do your comps. Don't be afraid.
And when you say comps, comparisons of homes around there that you would ideally want to sell around that price range,
because you can overpay.
Sure.
For your purchase.
Yeah.
That's okay, as long as you know that you're going to get a really good price at the end.
Right.
So that's why I say make sure you know your end numbers first, because you can do the same theory that I mentioned before and work backwards.
Right, reverse engineer it.
Subtract what it's going to cost to get there, right, and do that.
Makes sense.
So keep that in mind. Make sure you do your homework for your sale price. Don't be afraid to get an appraisal. Pay for an appraisal. And a lender's going to do an appraisal.
They're what, $400 or $500?
Exactly.
That'll save you maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You'll know exactly where you're going to be if you're unsure, right? So you can go into your comps and think, I'm going to sell it for $500 and do an appraisal, and it's $400. They're usually pretty good at their job. They're pretty close. Yes, it is an opinion of value, so maybe it'll go for more, but they're worth all the money. And then the other, which is was supposed to be part 2, is a lot of people get ruined because of the scope of work, the middle.
The contractor stuff. Okay.
They don't realize that when they did their budget, they thought it was going to be $60,000, and then it's $80,000. That $20,000 profit they thought they were going to make, gone. So really know your numbers in the middle. I think that my broker Lewis had said this to me before. People get killed on rehabs. That is one of the biggest deal killers. Is the fact that a rehab was underestimated, or something was just missed. And I don't want to get this horror story you're going to open the wall up, it's going to be $20,000 to fix. That is HGTV. That stuff really doesn't necessarily happen in real life. But if you go and get a contract that it says it's going to be $50,000, and then it ends up being $70,000 because you went with the first guy who's the cheapest guy, that could kill your deal.
Okay. All right, so know your numbers at the end, and then also identify your middle numbers, i.e. the contractor, and then also contact Ed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, reach out to me. Definitely reach out to me. I can go over the process if you have any questions. I know if anybody's listening because they're interested in getting involved, number one, thank you for watching. But number two, this is a lot of information. I can go over this with you again. This is what I do for a living. It doesn't bother me. Call me. We'll go over this stuff. It's not a big deal at all.
Cool. Any other resources you'd want to plug other than check out your website?
Like a specific resource to plug on this, I don't really have a place to say, hey, go to this. Probably, the resource overall would be networking, because you're going to be out networking. You're going to find contractors. You're going to find agents that can sell your home. You're going to find people who can find you a home to do an investment. So the most important thing, I guess, in this whole networking space, anybody who's investing space, is to be networking, as I alluded to when I slipped up there. But definitely be out networking. A big event in the area that I believe in is shout out to John Steingraber. He runs an event called NJRESN, and it is the second Wednesday of every night in Garwood, New Jersey. So I would check him out, look him up on Meetup.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you all for listening and watching today. Again, edhendrickson.com. Check Ed out. He's available. He's got a bunch of things on his website that you can take a look at. You can also contact us at hustleestate1. That's the number 1. So hustleestate1@gmail.com. You can also check us out on Instagram and Twitter. Just the tag Hustle Estate. And until next week or next time, I think that's all we got. So thank you all.
Thanks, guys, for checking in. Appreciate it.
Take it easy.